Hello, everyone. We are back on Finito. I don't know, what week are we in, Gemma?
I think 10. I think we've hit
10
double
sounds good to me.
digits.
Oh, that's an achievement. So, we thought that it might be a good idea to talk about increasing income today. Both of us always say there is a limit to how much you can reduce your expenses, but there is no limit on what you can earn. You can earn $40 billion if you can find a way to make it happen. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. But where do we start, Gemma?
There is so much to that. So I guess I think the majority of the time, based on what we're really interested in, we're probably going to be focusing on how you can increase your income in a job that you already have. I think that's where we'll focus. But I think it's important to kind of note that there's just so many ways that you can earn income. So your money can earn income through investing, and you can have your money going to work for you. You can be working, you could be creating passive income streams where you've done the work initially, like say a course or something in the gig economy, where you've done the initial work, but you get paid regardless if you then show up, because that money is going to work for you. So there's
Yeah.
ways that you can actively work to earn income. There's passive ways that you can earn income. And yeah, as you said, there's absolutely no limit to how much you can earn. And yeah, so setting goals there. But I think people automatically assume that the only way that they can get ahead is to cut their expenses, and you can only cut your expenses so much. And sometimes you don't want to cut them at all, right? Sometimes you want to have all those luxuries in your life. And so your other option is you look at the income that you're bringing in. And there's lots of elements to that. You want to be tax effective, but people also don't want to pay tax. But paying tax is a good thing. It means you're earning, right? So it definitely shouldn't be something that you're scared of. But yeah, I think there's just so many ways that you can earn income these days, which is crazy. You could do it from your own living room, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Or a
If
hotel
you
room,
think
as I am.
about potentially, and I make it probably sound easier than it is, but it is a lot easier to get a $10,000 pay rise at work than it is to find $10,000 to cut out of your expenses. So,
Yeah.
how would you suggest someone approach this if they enjoy their job? Let's start with that.
Yeah. I think regardless if you enjoy your job or not, or you're looking elsewhere, in your day-to-day job now, you should be looking at, regardless if you think you're going to leave in 3, 6, 12 months, there is absolutely no harm in asking for a pay rise, but it is so important how you structure that conversation. So you need to absolutely take the emotion out of it first. It needs to be a collaborative discussion, not like threats, not a confrontation. Like, I think it's like people put so much emotion into it that they get really upset, and it's kind of like when you call in sick and you're not comfortable and you feel like you really have to like justify it.
When you are really sick.
You're like, I'm really dying. So yeah, I think doing the pre-work before and setting up the expectation, making sure you're really calm, making sure that you've done all the work before. So when you have that conversation, it can be really, really collaborative and with positive outcomes. And you might even get a no, right? If you get a no, and you should be prepared to get a no, what does that roadmap look like, and when are you going to go back and check in? What's your plan going to be? Are you going to go start looking for other jobs? Are you going to show that you have more value in that? And when can you check in next with your manager? Like, yeah, I think setting up that conversation first. So I would book the appointment with the manager in advance. Don't spring it on them when they're trying to walk out the door or they've had a busy day. Tell them that's what it's about. Get dot points ready. I'd probably even send them over information first and say, this is what I'm looking to speak to about. These are the key points on why I want to pay rise and why I feel that I add value. So I would do all the pre-work. So then when you're in that conversation, you don't get flustered and confused and forget all of your valuable points. They've already got it. They've already had time to think about it. And then it's like, well, it's not so hard getting the words out because you've already told them, you've already put it to them, they've had time to think of it, and then you can try and take the emotion out. So I think that the building blocks is probably the most important part of getting the outcome you want.
And to reiterate that, like, it's not about what you're saying. It's not what you're saying. It's about how you say it. And so the preparation is probably the most time consuming part. I always suggest to clients to, in their notes app on their phone, if just from the day you start work, have a little bit of a, what's that word? where you keep all your trophies, like a trophy room. Or times you've gone above and beyond, or when you've
And
received
feedback folders. Yes, yeah, absolutely. All of that stuff, because that's going to set the scene and show the value that you add. And you want to focus on the value. Oh, someone called it a hero file in the comments. I love that. Yes. So you can't go in with the I need a pay rise because my expenses are this, or my living expenses. That is not your employer's issue at all. You need to go in with the value that I bring to the company is my skills, my expertise, and my effort, my attitude. And these are all the examples. Maybe you even look at what your role was when you first started and how that's changed and how that should be reflecting. Or you go from right now, I know that my role can change. If I do this, this, and this, can I have that extra income?
And that trophy room or that hero file can serve you really well if maybe you're having a bad day at work one day. Like, bad days happen, and you can open that up and remind yourself of the value that you do bring to the organization and the good work that you do to perk yourself back up again and get stuck into it. But I find that when we've got that ammunition, it makes writing that letter or setting out those dot points so much easier because we have confidence in ourselves. You might actually need a pay rise because you can't pay your mortgage that's just come off a fixed rate and gone to variable. But we're not voicing that. We're talking more about the value that we bring. And if you're just really concerned about your home loan, the way that you communicate that you want a pay rise may not be up to scratch in terms of actually getting that result if you don't have that ammunition, if that doesn't come through in that communication. And what I always suggest as well is jumping on something like ChatGPT, doing your brain dump, all the things like putting in your list of achievements, even dropping in if you've got a job description sitting on the intranet or that you received when you first started, or you've got your job ad from Seek, putting that in, just talking to ChatGPT, giving it as much information as you can to say, I need your help in terms of how I go about getting this pay rise. Can you draft me a letter? Can you give me talking points? Can you suggest how I should approach this? What the email should say to book the appointment? All of that stuff is so powerful. And the more goodness that you put into it, the more goodness comes out of it.
Yeah. And you can do a lot of research. So the other thing is do your research as well around a couple of things. So one, is the company doing well? Have your research around that, about figures. Is there sales targets? Are they on track? Are they not? Maybe they're not, but you can go in with, I understand this is the position, but there's the value I add. Because, that's going to be the easiest way for them to say no is, oh, we're not hitting our targets, we're not this. So be prepared if that is potentially something that's going to be a roadblock. Have your, well, this is why I still think that I deserve it kind of thing. And the other thing is around doing the research about what this role pays elsewhere. Jump on Seek. What are those other websites where you can compare salaries and stuff? Like, do your research. You go, in the market, this is the salary range,
Yeah. The Hey Salary Guide is always good for that. That's released every year. It's also good for those who might not be really happy in their current role and they want to look for something else, but they're concerned about, meeting their current lifestyle living expenses, so finding something comparable. So you can just jump online to find the Hey Salary Guide. It has lots of different roles in lots of different locations. And in my experience, all of the roles that I've looked at in the past, it's pretty accurate. What were you going to say, Gemma?
I was going to say, have you ever asked for a pay rise?
Many times. You don't get what you don't ask for. And that is something that I bring up with a lot of my coaching clients, is that they come to me, how can we meet our expenses? What can we cut? And we flip it, because the other part of that formula is, well, what about your income? Can you ask for a pay rise? How long have you been at your workplace? Is this like a routine thing that happens? Even if it is a routine thing, there is no hard and fast rule that means you can't have that conversation outside of those times. So the biggest pay rise I ever received was $40,000.
Yeah. 40,000. That is so impressive. I think mine was around 10 or 15 when I was working as an advisor. And the conversation was more around, you weren't allowed to talk about salaries and stuff, but some of the guys had pulled me aside and said, this is what we get paid. And I thank them so much for it, because we were literally doing the same job. If not, I was doing more, because the only woman in the office, I was organizing the morning teas, I was, manager office, like doing all this unpaid stuff. And the boys kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, our salary ranges are very different. Yours is lower. And like, how amazing is that they shared? So I went and said, hey, I should be paid exactly, we're doing exactly the same role. If not, I'm doing more. And so I got the pay rise from that. But it wasn't me saying, I do this, I do that. I was just like, when that whole movement was happening around, it was very much in the media, and companies were doing reviews on making sure that they didn't have those inequities. But really frustrating out of that, I found out that the boys also got pay rises. So I came up to their level, and then they like, it just makes me so angry. I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny at all, and it's really, really frustrating. But that's a totally different conversation.
A little bit of redirection in conversation. I mentioned to you the other day that I found some statistics from the Australian Tax Office around tax returns and taxable income and that kind of thing. So this won't necessarily help you get your pay rise, but just interesting facts that we like to share. So this data is a few years old, because it takes a while for them to kind of catch up. But 15% of people earn a rental income. Would you have thought that that would be higher or lower?
Do you know what? I actually thought it would be higher, but initially, my initial thought was, I thought it'd be higher. But when I think about it, maybe it should actually, that's probably pretty high if you think of all the people paying tax, from the 18-year-olds to the 60, 70-year-olds. So when I drill down on that more, maybe I'm actually surprised that that's quite high. But that's an important part of this conversation, right? We're talking about how to increase your income. We've focused initially on like getting a pay rise, but earning other sorts of income outside is so important, so that when you stop working, you've got that income from a rental property or an investment portfolio or something else coming in as well. What other stats do you have?
Well, of that 15%, 8% had a net rental loss, whereby their expenses for the property exceed the income. And then 7% had a net rental profit.
Yeah, that's interesting though, because you can have non-cash deductibles that make it look like, so you can have a cash flow positive property, but from a tax perspective, it's a negative. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all of those people are copping a hit to actually cash flow that property. But yeah, I think in Australia, a lot of people do have to contribute to their investment properties.
What percent of Australians submitting tax returns do you think operate a business in their own name? So they're sole traders.
Under 25%?
10%.
Oh, I would have thought it was a bit higher, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, me too. Of that, 2% made a loss, which again, the figures can not tell lies, but not
necessarily. It could be a paper loss versus a cash flow loss.
Yeah. And then the 8% made a profit. This one was my favourite though. The postcode with the highest average taxable income was the postcode of 6011, the suburbs of Cotslow and Peppermint Grove in WA.
Yeah, that's so surprising. WA.
Yes, well, mining could be related, but it's actually where the Bunnings family live. Okay. And a few other very wealthy CEOs. So that would certainly skew the figures. But what do you think the average taxable income was for that suburb per person? So per adult, really.
Oh, now I'm thinking it's going to be something ridiculous. 500,000.
Close. 325,000. It blows my mind that a whole postcode's average income can be 325,000. So there would be some with a lot lower, some a lot higher, but I think I might move there.
See, I was automatically thinking it would be like Sydney or somewhere. I wonder if we could get the stats on like what the average.
There is like the top 10 available, but I just gravitated towards the number one spot. Some statistics around some particular occupations. So there were, in this particular taxable year, 4,159 surgeons who submitted tax returns, and their average income was a touch over 400,000. And then there were anaesthetists, which
I was going to say there'd be
a smidgen under 388. But I actually had a client while I was an advisor who was retired anaesthetist, and they were actually in quite a poor financial position as a result of gambling. So it's not about necessarily what you earn, but what you do with it. Like, we can earn $50,000 a year and be the happiest person on the planet, or we can earn $500 million a year and be the most miserable person on the planet. So income is not everything, but money touches every aspect of our lives. And if we can get more income, it means we have more choices. So it is a really important discussion we're having today.
Yeah. And the most important thing is that your income exceeds your expenses, right? So yeah, if you've got low expenses, then you only need that little bit more. But if you're on a really high salary and you've got really high expenses, it's absolutely right. But regardless, everybody in whatever capacity that they're earning, an increase would make life easier.
Yeah. Something else that I wanted to touch on today, and I think we might have spoken about it in a previous episode, was in relation to the fee-free TAFE that is on offer this year in all states and territories in Australia. So there are a handful, and when I say a handful, in Queensland there's about 80 or 90 TAFE courses that are fee-free, that you're not having to pay for. One of those is the certificate for in training and assessment. And I had a client last night. She is an interior designer, and I stumbled across a role to teach interior design, and her pay rate to teach, excuse me, was $100 an hour, and she's not getting that in her employment. I know nurses who were on night shift previously, who then went and did their training and assessment and are now teach nursing, and now don't have night shift, but now are paid more. So that can apply to nearly every occupation around. So if teaching is something that you like doing, it's something that they do casually as well. So you can keep your normal job and do this on the side, or there are full-time roles available as well. But if you don't know this kind of thing exists and it's out there, you're not necessarily going to go and have a look at it. And just to take advantage of it while it is free this year, it's a saving of about $4,000.
This is like the slow burn, right? Like, everybody thinks, oh, I need to go get a pay rise today, or I need to start a side hustle today to bring other income in. But maybe it's, hey, if I started doing this now, I know within 2 years my income can get to this level. Like, not everything needs to be a quick win. It can be you just having like financial goals, like other types of goals that you're going to slowly start working towards that are going to open up lots of opportunities. It might be that you're not even working in that field, but you'd like to. And this is also how you show your employer that you're adding value, is by going, oh, these are the things, if it relates to work, it might be so you get out of that industry, but you can go, well, these are the things that I'm proactively also doing so that I can add more value, add more skills, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then we don't want to forget the people who aren't employed, who are self-employed. And so increasing income in that space, that can look like a lot of different things, but something that can make a big difference to the bottom line is increasing fees if you are a fee-based service provider, or increasing the sale price of a product. Even if that means you lose some clients or some customers, the end result will hopefully be better if you've gone about it the right way.
Yeah, you free up your capacity to bring on more valuable clients. And I think if you know your worth, and if you're self-employed and knowing the types of clients that you want. So I think back to financial advice days, which is not self-employed, but initially I was just like, yep, I have to help everybody. Everybody has to become a client that sits in front of me. And I would try to convince them to be my clients. Whereas as I was more comfortable with it, I would decide, do I want them as a client? Like picking your clients, the ones that you want to work with, that you know that you can add value, that aren't going to be hard work and absolutely drain all of your other, resources and time. So I think that's really big in self-employed as well, thinking that, yes, this might be an opportunity in front of you right now, but is it actually worth taking it on, or will that cut me off from doing something, the next thing? And I also think if you are like a one-man band or a small business, outsourcing tasks that you're not good at, so paying somebody to do them, that can do them a lot quicker, a lot more efficient, and that means that you could be working on other things in your business that you're good at, you enjoy, and that bring in money. A lot of small businesses think that they have to wear all the hats and do all of the jobs, but I think it's really important to kind of look at that and go, is this something that I can outsource more efficiently that frees up my time and potentially leads to more cash flow as well?
And that ties into the whole side hustles or gig economy as well. You can create a business doing something, but then outsource everything, whereby it doesn't necessarily take up a lot of your time, but you can still generate an income. And so that is more entrepreneurial. It's not for everyone, but I think if you're always actively looking at ways that you can increase your income while still enjoying yourself and not working yourself to the bone, it's probably going to make a big difference to your excuse me, financial trajectory.
I bet that you can put into Chat GPT or one of those AI things saying, hey, these are all the things I love. These are all the things I'm good at. Think of some business ideas. I think that's one of the most common things that's put in there is how do I make more money, apparently. But I think you would go a step further and you'd say, these are my skill set. This is actually what I enjoy doing. Now help me brainstorm on things that could make me more money.
Something we didn't talk about earlier was when the employer just says no. Sorry, can't do a pay rise. What to do then? So the first two things that always spring to mind for me are something as simple as a more prestigious job title, because that might not really serve you well at all currently, but that might look really good on your resume for future applications.
It doesn't cost them a thing. Love that.
Yes, and more flexible work arrangements. So that might be the introduction of you working from home for a portion of your week.
So if you said, well, what about if I work from home a couple of days a week? Then your parking's gone. Maybe you're not eating out lunch. Then you're not, as much fuel. So they haven't impacted the company. So I always think going in with a best case and a worst case, don't leave with a no, leave with a negotiation on, well, these are the other things I'd like you to consider. Maybe it's that they put you through a training program or they start mentoring you to do something else, or just getting more and making sure that you have regular check-ins. So going, okay, so it's a no. I want to come back to you in 3 months or 6 months or whatever, and I want to have this discussion again. And you don't just go no and go back to your desk. Cry.
And what do you have to see from me, or what do I need to achieve in order for this to be a more realistic conversation? Yes, I love this. And even though it can be such an uncomfortable conversation, that uncomfort is a good thing. Like, that is when we grow. Lean into the discomfort and do it anyway. Like, feel the fear and do it anyway. There's no one coming to save you. Yes, there are people who randomly get pay rises without asking for them, but you will make a big change to your situation if you prioritize this.
And it's important to also remember that your manager is an employee, unless it's like the owner of the business, but they also are likely having to have these conversations with the next up the chain, right? They are a person as well that would get nervous, have to prepare, do all of the exact same things. So yes, it can feel really daunting having this conversation with them, but they're just a person that also has to go through this exact same thing. They had to learn a new job. They had to ask for a pay rise and go for promotions and things to get where they are, and likely are still reporting to somebody else. So I think remembering that this is a person is going to help you with your confidence on that conversation.
Anything else you want to add today before we wrap it up?
No, I really love that one. But I think it's really important going in without the emotion. So taking the emotion out of it and being really, really prepared, and being prepared for a no. And what are you going to do in that circumstance? Like, most people, I would hope, wouldn't just threaten to quit as part of this conversation. It might be that in the conversation you got to say, well, that's unfortunate. I do know that there's other things and I may be looking for other roles, But I think if the more you prepare and take the emotion out of it, the less likely you're going to get emotional and make hasty, rash decisions in that situation.
The only other thing I would add, and I actually saw it really recently, when you're applying for a new job and you've been offered a new job, to not accept that initial offer. It might be really exciting. You might hate your other role. It might be really exciting. You just want to get your foot in the door and you think, I can negotiate later. But that is a prime opportunity. They want you, and just negotiating doesn't mean you're saying no. It's about how you say it.
And worst case, they say no, and you look at the offer that you originally got. But also talking to your employer, like, how many times do you hear somebody go, I accepted a job, I'm about to start, I went to resign, and then my employer was like, hey, we'll give you all the things that you wanted. So having that conversation with them as well. And then you might have two companies fighting over you, and you can decide, well, which work life looks better, which income looks better, which perks are better, because it's not always about the money, right?
It's when you say, who's going to give me a private jet?
I was thinking more like, who's got the gym membership or the Friday night drinks. But I'll take a jet too.
I actually did see a reel the other day about someone who bought a private jet and uses it and also rents it out. And I was like, maybe I should look into that.
Do you know what I heard the other day? Have we got a couple of minutes? Oh, who was telling me this? That there's this like small town where they don't have Ubers or taxis, and
What?
a group of guys got together, like a group of friends. I'm going to make this up, but say 8 of them, I'm imagining, and they bought a stretch limousine for like 20 grand, and they have it in the town. So if they need to go anywhere, the friends always get first option. But there's kids that drive it, so they're teenagers, they're on their P's or whatever, and whoever uses it in the town just has to pay whichever kid drove them. So the boys that bought this don't make any money, but they just have a car whenever they need to go somewhere. But then the teenagers who drive the car when whoever rings and wants a thing just gets paid directly. I was like, this is such a cool idea. Totally unrelated to work or earning, but I was like, yeah, that's just like totally thinking out of the box and going, we have a problem to solve. How can we fund it? How will we get use out of it? And then how can other people benefit from it? It's like a win-win.
Something else that just hit me that we didn't really specify, but is super, super important for this conversation is really coming at these discussions from how do I say it? That relates to the employer and to your role, not to your personal life. That's got nothing to do with it, really.
It's the value you bring to the business.
Yeah. Key piece of information that we just snuck in. But I will see you next week. Same time, same place, different topic.
Week 11. I'll be at a different place because I'm in a hotel.
Okay.
Bye.